I want to address healthcare reform a little bit with you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you my view, and then you tell me what you think or if I'm wrong. My view has increasingly been that, number one, Barack Obama took the wrong approach from the start. He should have started out saying single payer is the way, and I'd be willing to consider, as a compromise, some kind of strong public option, rather than what took place, which is he started out not too strongly for a public option, and now the best case seems to be a very watered-down public option where, by the way, the insurance companies got everything they want in the negotiations.
Yeah, Business Week had a headline a few weeks ago saying the insurance companies are winning.
Well, I always thought that a good compromise is supposed to leave all sides unhappy. I don't see what the insurance companies are giving up in this supposed negotiation.
Or the drug companies.
Or the drug companies.
They're getting a big bonanza and wait and see the prices of medicines.
So what would Barack Obama have been better served to start with single payer, even though I know that it's not anything that I think his communications people would be horrified for him to mention that, and negotiate back to a public option?
Exactly.
I think starting with a public option was the mistake.
Absolutely. They sliced the pie and kept slicing the pie until it's a caricature, the public option that might dribble through, if indeed it gets through the Senate at all. He should have started with what the majority of the American people, doctors and nurses, are for. A simple, full Medicare for all with free choice of doctor and hospital, enormous efficiencies, and the kind that will significantly cut back the per capita expenditure, which is double the size of what Switzerland, Germany, France, and Canada spend on their health care, and they cover everybody, and we don't cover 50 million people. So, yeah, that's what he should have done. First of all, he believes in single payer. He has for years. He said that publicly. He just doesn't think that he can overcome the corporate opposition to it.
A couple of other questions, and these are from listeners that have emailed in over the last week. Number one, does it bother you, and we've spoken about this before a couple of years ago, does it bother you that so many people associate you with having thrown the 2000 election to George W. Bush, eventually leading to what some consider one of the worst political disasters ever, going into Iraq?
Well, no, because it's a false statement. If you ask Al Gore why didn't he go to the White House, he will not mention the Green Party. He will mention that it was stolen from him in Florida in ways that have filled books from Tallahassee to the Supreme Court. He won the popular vote. It's the only democracy I know where you can come in first and lose the office because of something called the Electoral College, and the guy who gets number two, Bush, becomes president. Third, he knew he should have won his home state of Tennessee and Clinton's home state of Arkansas. Either one would have put him in the White House, even with the shenanigans in Florida. So anybody who just basically says, oh, it was the Green Party, is displaying wittingly or unwittingly a political bigotry, because everyone has a right to run for elective office in this country, and everyone has a right to try to get votes from one another. And the minute we start saying, if you're not a Republican Democrat, you can't do that, then we have a two-party dictatorship, which I refuse to abide by. And my campaign manager has elaborated this in a very exciting new book called The Grand Illusion, The Tyranny of Voter Choice, the myth of voter choice in a two-party tyranny. Her name is Teresa Amato. Very articulate, should be very good on your program.
Excellent.
David.
Lou Franco emailed in, and he said he wants you to react to Malcolm Gladwell's statement that even considering your work for auto safety, that your actions in the 1970s actually delayed the increased use of seatbelts when you said that seatbelt laws wouldn't work, even though now we do know that they increase the amount of seatbelt usage. How would you react to that? Do you regret how that went?
Well, Gladwell doesn't know what he's talking about. He's starting to write about too many things in his books that he doesn't really know much about, sort of a pop psychologist. And I had a long talk with him, and he just refused to listen. We were pushing for both seatbelts and airbags. And if some states like New Hampshire refused to pass mandatory seatbelt usage laws, we thought that it would be good at least to have a federal airbag standard. So we were always double track. My record is very clear, written record, testimony record. But wherever we confronted a very stubborn legislature, for example, and it was at the state level for mandatory usage laws, then we went for airbags or side protection or rollover protection, anything that would minimize the risk of injury should a crash occur.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, you famously said that while there were some differences between Al Gore and George W. Bush in 2000, they were essentially very similar overall in their approach. How would you characterize the similarity or difference between Obama and McCain in 2008?
Well, you see, I judge them heavily on how they react to the corporate domination of our political economy and of our lawmakers and of trying to commercialize anything that moves. Everything's supposed to be for sale in a commercial world. They've commercialized childhood, undermining parental authority and marketing junk food and violent programming to small children and pre-teenagers. And on that yardstick, the two parties aren't that much different. I mean, they both supported the bailout of Wall Street. It was almost a seamless transition from Bush to Obama in terms of all the bailout programs. The re-regulation efforts are very anemic. And sure, I mean, the Democrats are better in some areas of civil rights, to be sure. They're better in some areas of Social Security, for example. But just remember, they're the ones who could have stopped the Patriot Act. They didn't. They're the ones who could have stopped the war in Iraq. They had the votes and the filibuster votes in the Senate. They didn't. They didn't even put up a squawk, hardly. They didn't even say only Congress can declare war, George. We're not going to give it to King George IV to plunge this nation into war. And the other point, David, is what's your sense of urgency and level of expectation? If you have a low level of expectation, then the small differences between the two parties become bigger. But if you have a large, more appropriate level of expectation to have this country at least have some of the social safety nets that Western Europe has had for 50 years, including full health insurance and tuition-free university education, decent public transit, and decent wages and pensions for the bottom third of the workers in Europe is much better than in this country. If you have a higher level of expectation, you can be much more critical of the two parties. We can do better, and we will do better if we have competitive elections. We don't gerrymander districts so either Republican or Democrats have slam-dunk re-elections, and we allow the voters to have more choice by having third-party and independent candidates. And that's what we're fighting for, to open up the ballot to more agendas and more choices so that people are not confronted with an incumbent who doesn't even have an opposing major party candidate against him and her because they've gerrymandered the districts.
Well, I think you're absolutely right that we can certainly do better. And we've been speaking with Ralph Nader, author of Only the Super Rich Can Save Us. Of course, author, political activist, and former presidential candidate. Thanks so much for taking the time today.
Thanks, David, and thank your listeners. I hope they'll have their imagination lifted up by this book, because if we don't lift up our imaginations, we won't have a reach, and if we don't have a reach, we won't have a grasp, and we'll continue the decline of our country, which 81% of the American people in last year's poll believe is the case.
Okay, thanks so much for calling in. We'll talk to you soon.
You're welcome, David.
Take care. Well, a lot covered there, Lewis. And the new book it's interesting. I did read it, and it's quite a read. And Ralph Nader, always an interesting take on just about anything.
Always, always.